Alright, good afternoon, welcome back. We're here for the second episode of the Land Cruiser. So we're going from a bush beater to something that we can travel. Now before I dive too deep into that, we don't exactly have a massive trip planned tomorrow, but once again, we want to be able to not be limited where we take the car. So we want to be able to go up and down the coast, do some four-wheel drive and do some camping, and obviously not avoid the tough stuff along the way. So that's kind of what we're doing. We will get some big trips planned in the future, and this will probably more than likely be the car we use to do it, but obviously we've got plenty of options in the future. So we'll see how we travel all that. Now, I've got a heap done since the last episode, so I took the time, put in a couple of hours after work in here just to get the nitty-gritty bits done. So lots of little odd jobs in it, and I'm not going to show you, they're pretty boring. I have done a clean sweep under the chassis. So I've gone through and really cleaned it down. And then what I've actually done is I've done a nut and bolt check front to back. And I've actually just got some matte black paint and just run it across all the more common bits, all the wearing bits and that sort of stuff as well. So I'll show you that. Now, just to better explain this, there's a bit of a theory behind it here. So with the nut and bolt check, I found a ton of stuff that was loose. I've checked brakes, I've checked bearings, I've checked hubs. So there was hours involved with that. And there was a lot of loose, bent, damaged stuff that I've got on a list to replace, which is awesome. So something you need to do a little bit more regularly, I think. Now, there are areas of the chassis that are prone to cracking. So around the radius arms and up around the steering box. Once again, prone on the edges to cracking. So I've gone over, and everywhere I've checked, I've hit just with a quick coat of cheap paint. Looks fantastic, which is another benefit. But from here on in, if there is any rubbing, anything comes loose and, generally comes a bit more shiny, I'll be able to see what's involved with that as well. So a few surprises in there. So the kingpin bolts on the bottom, they're prone to coming loose, and as per normal, they were. My drag link end is absolutely knackered, so I've got another of them on order. I've checked over brakes, I've done everything. Now I'm actually going to redo the brakes. I think it's not worth... It's an old truck, it's 30 years old, so these things do need replacing. So wearing components like pads and rotors, I've swapped a number of times, but being in the bush, they just get chewed out really quickly. I have had some issues with calipers that I need to fix, so I think I'm just going to do fresh calipers and everything front to back. I'm not going to order those now for the sheer fact that we're probably going to be moved out of here in about a week's time. So if anything dawdles on delivery, it'll turn up, we won't be living here anymore. So I'll wait until we're a little bit more grounded to get that stuff ordered, or maybe send it to my parents or something, I don't know. But that's kind of what I've been doing on the down low. So I've ordered a ton of parts, all the sway bar links are coming. I've just gone through bushes, I've gone through everything, so I've got a ton of gear coming today. Now, once again, today is going to be, well, this week is probably going to be the last run in the shed. So by the end of this weekend, I have Thursday, Fridays off, Thursday today, so by sort of Sunday evening, I really need to have this knocked out and done. So we'll get stuck into it shortly. I do have a confession to make with, I guess, the turbocharging. So as I mentioned, I have done the research. It is doable. So you can slap a turbo on and a 5-pound wastegate spring, and the computer will respond to it. Now, it's a lot more beneficial, the post-95 models. They've got a different airflow meter system in them. Now the pre-95s, it can be done, but it's not great. So I read at first it can be done. I thought, wonderful, we'll run with that. Now, it will be a bit dramatic if you do it on the pre-95 system. So some guys have argued that they've only been able to make 2 or 3 pound boost before it starts to cause them issues. Other people have had better success, but everyone at the same time has suggested you've got to be really easy on the throttle. So if you chomp the throttle, the car will cut and carry on. Now, I don't need to remind you, it's an off-roader. If we're mid-hill climbing, I've got to be gentle on the throttle. It's not going to work out too good. So I'm going to have to go away from that, unfortunately. It will spiral like everything, and I've done it with the Integra down the front. One thing turns to another, You start chasing ignition and head gaskets and this work and that work, and it blows the budget out. It won't be what I want. I want it basic, reliable. So NA is what it's going to stay. I have ordered the headers, so hopefully they're going to turn up today, and then we can get that knocked out as well. So I've got the exhaust out here laid down. So catback system is ready to go under. I've gone and done some run around today. So I've just got some floor mats for just use them as mud flaps, something nice and easy. I've got the pinch weld stuff for the flares because the ones they come with just won't work. All my little exhaust brackets, so now I can actually mount that catback. Pulley for the air compressor system. Gaskets, bolts, everything, and heaps more turning up today. So once again, I'm going to dive into it. I'll try and film a bit more this time. It was a bit boring last time when I just pop up for an update, show you what I've done, again. So I'll try and get some footage of what's going on. Try and get knocked over, so we'll jump into it. Alright, first job up. So I was going to jump under the exhaust, but silly me hosed it all down to get rid of the dirt. So that's a bit wet. So I might start with just doing some of the flares. I'm only going to start with the panels that are straight enough to put them back on. Some will need massaging, but I figure we'll knock these out first. So these are the old ones. Look, they've had a hard run. That's probably one of the better ones, to be honest. They've had a bit of drift stitching repairs going on. Fresh rear bumper there, not bad. But yeah, look, they've had a hard run, so I'll start off replacing these guys here. Knock that out, and we might jump under and finally get this cap back on. Alrighty, quick update after I said I wasn't going to do things and update you, but you don't want to see me screwing flares on. So I got one side done, a lot straighter than what I thought actually. So these are actually quite good. So the ones on the ground here look to be a bit thinner. I got these about 2 years ago. I think they were about 300 bucks. These were like $212 on eBay. Seem pretty solid. If I can get another couple of years out of those guys, I'll be happy. But yeah, man, it looks brand new. Did come with this as like an edge sort of whatever you want to call it, and there's a double-sided tape in there, but they just don't work. So I had to go to Clark Rubber and get this bigger fella. It is a bit square and a bit boxy, but it does the job really well. Quite exy actually, 70 odd bucks or 60 odd bucks for 6 meters, so that's quite surprising. But yes, it's good to see that you know, for $212 you get some flares on there, and if they break, simply swap them over and go again. It seems they're quite universal, so that's what I was worried about. I guess when I got another set, the bolts not lining up, I'm having to re-drill them and stuff, but that's all been really good. So I'll get this other side done, and then hopefully the ground's dried up and we'll get this exhaust on. Day two, so we lost most of day one yesterday, just little jobs, and had to run off for a house inspection, so I apologise for dropping that and running with it. Not that I got much done because nothing had turned up. So today I've had a few extras turn up, still waiting on some of the bigger stuff like the headers. I'd really like to get the front of the car done so I can flip it around and get the back sorted out. So that's kind of the plan. Now, I've got the air compressor for the AC here. So here's the old one. That obviously is in factory. You can see that they've had some sort of muddle up there. So the first one we ordered was a complete different pattern. I've got the new one here, and I've just had to modify it. So where it actually sits is you've got the hose coming at the top, and the coolant neck kind of runs here. So the high pressure feed I've had to sort of cut and plug, luckily, because the high pressure line's got its own feed there, so that's lucky. So that's going to get me out of trouble there. I'm just going to get this mounted up. I'm not going to have the camera on for this, and hopefully it sits where it is. I also had another crack in the, it's like a, I don't know what it is, like a little plate under the exhaust manifold. Obviously coolant and oil runs through it. There was a crack on that in the coolant side, so luckily I found that before the headers and everything went on, but I've got that sort of plugged up as well. So I'm letting all that dry, and I'll see how we go. Losing time. We did go and get some drawers as well. So our succession for finding another place to rent has fallen through with such short notice, so we think we're just going to go on storage. So I bought that just so I can pack the car with everything I need, and that'll be my sort of like my toolbox on wheels, I guess, anyway. But I'm going to get this mounted up and I'll come back to you. Alright, well frankly this is all falling apart. So this is the last full day I've got to work on this car before we're moving out next week. It's all hands on deck packing and moving, and we're failing miserably. So in terms of the AC compressor, I'm still going to mount that yet, but that was a bit of modification. Hopefully that's it and we're past that. Now the engine, like the oil cooler cover, just this piece over through here, you can see I've puttied it in that top left hand corner. That is still leaking. All 4x4 do have one of those guys. It'd be worth fixing that properly. First of all, because it's a pain to get to when the manifold's off, and secondly, while I'm here. So I'll probably try and get one of those. So I need that. The pulley for the AC is wrong as well. Everything else hoping to finalise on the engine bay isn't working for me today. So I think I'm just going to get this thing together, turn the car around and start working on the back of the car. So I've still got stickers to pull off, get this drawer and get the back set up, load all my tools up in it and just tidy up the shed. So that's kind of the aim for the end of the day. I didn't want to be working into next week on the car after work, but it looks like I'm going to have to get the stuff done. So I will just get this in one piece. I'll move the patrol, flip it up backwards, and then we'll start looking at the tail lights, get the dings fixed, get the back set up, do all that sort of stuff. But what do you do? What do you do? So this is the back of the Land Cruiser. This is just our bush truck setup. So big stereo, spares, recovery equipment, odds and ends for tools. Fridge, just got a couple of 12 volt outlets and an amp. So that's all pretty straightforward. So as I mentioned, we're going to get the drawers in the back of it. Now I was going to look at the King's Titan ones that are like a couple $100, but the back of this is known to go underwater. They're made of wood, and This one's got a fridge slide and a bottle opener, so that's a bit of a win. So I'm going to get that in on the passenger side, stack the fridge up, change these lights out. The passenger side one's probably going to go pretty well straight in, but the driver's side one is going to need quite a bit of massaging. All the stickers off, just doesn't need any more attention on the road, I don't think, to be honest, with 4" and 37s. And then I'll jack up the back and check bearings and brakes as it in the front as well, and then hopefully that can tick the back end off. I probably will just get this stuff ordered. I'll wait till the headers turn up today, actually, because I want to see if I've actually got gaskets with them. If not, I'll put them in the order for all 4x4 for probably Monday. And just, it's going to be a messy job, it really is, but we'll knock it over when we can. But let's get into this. XCM drawer, so club special, super cheap price, whatever, 370 bucks thereabout. But it just looks like a pretty well made thing, to be honest. So you've got the drawer, got the bottle opener, it's cool. Flick that up, and then the drawer slide, fridge slide, sorry. And you get all your fixtures for fridge tie downs and stuff as well. And a little table too, pretty cool. Alrighty, thought I'd take a quick break here and sort of show you where I'm up to. So I've gotten sort of the drawer in, bolted down, quick tidy up with the vacuum cleaner, so nothing special, but I thought I'd take the opportunities to show you what sort of spares I carry. I've got 2 complete bearing kits. I've got a stack of bearing kits, but that's everything from nuts to gaskets, everything. I carry a spare hub. I do have chromo gears in the current ones in the front because I've broken them, but that's a rebuilt Asian hub, and I carry just a normal flange anyway. So if one of my chromoly hubs busts, I've got the spare. If that busts, I've got the solid flange. I carry a set of front and rear brake pads as well. Now that may seem kind of odd, but there has been numerous times I've been out the 4-wheel drive and it's just spatter pad, and then you're metal on metal and you've got no brakes at all. So not an unusual one to carry if you've been or I've been anyway. My nuts and bolts box, so I've got pretty much everything in here. I've got shims for calipers, I've got kingpin studs, I've got absolutely everything you may need, just odds and ends. And I'll probably fill that up with just some more random nuts. A massive variety of gaskets, once again being collected, and there's a couple of shims for kingpins and stuff in there as well. In my main box, I've got a spare exhaust mount in case I snap one of those and it starts hitting a tyre or something. Plenty of axle seals. I've got a lot in there, more wheel bearings, nut kit, grease packets from old CVs, so that's handy in case you need to sort of break or change something. Spare set of leads and just some other. Alright, that's about, I think, as good as I'm going to get it. I could probably push a bit further, but it's going to sit in there, it's going to seal more or less, so I can't complain too much. A brand new car, if you ask me. Look at that. So that's going to sit in there now, that'll all pull in, and I'm very happy with that. If you're looking to do some panel beating, you need some tips, just, you know, send me a message to look after you. We'll get these lights done, stickers off, and I think I'm starting to run out of stuff to do finally, which is excellent. Still got those big jobs in the front to do, but just complain until the postman turns up, I guess. But get this light done and we'll tidy some stuff up. Alright, good afternoon and welcome back. I firstly want to apologise for the gap in the video. Obviously we were pushing towards a house move and that's exactly what's happened. So a bit empty here, that's just a rubbish pile there behind us. But it's time to get back into the vehicle. So I didn't really want to be putting any more days in after work, but unfortunately that's exactly what had to happen due to just running out of time. So I've got some basic footage of the work that happened after that. It wasn't good lighting, it was a bit rushed, a bit short on time, but I've got some snippets I'm going to stitch in here today and just sort of wrap up this second episode so we can push for the third. So I've got the truck here, and as you can see, it's looking a lot better. Obviously, the fact that it's raining and it has poor clear coat has nothing to do with it, but it's just generally looking like a bit of rig. Now, there is definitely an elephant in the room that I wish to address, and that is the turbo setup. So I'm actually feeling very guilty. I'm seeing a lot of comments that are saying, can't wait to see what happens with the turbo. I'm really interested in this and that. I feel like I've let a lot of people down, and I do apologize. I generally don't like to say things I don't do, especially on camera on the internet, but here we are. Now, just to touch on this a little bit more, it would be possible. I mean, to put a turbocharger on this, but it would just lead down a rabbit hole I'm not interested in doing right now. So, of course, you put the turbo on it. You then need to look at some, you know, fab work, the dump pipe and whatnot, and maybe just a basic wideband to keep an eye on things. But the money comes into the aftermarket ECU to run it all. It comes into the tune to tune it. It comes into putting the map sensor in. Where do you stop? So you turn into looking at the next weakest link, which would probably be ignition system, then maybe some head studs, and then you would look at a bigger gate, run more boost that you can obviously operate, injectors, fuel pump, like it doesn't end. If you're really interested in seeing me jam a motor with too much power and blow it up, then I've got a silver Honda for that there's plenty of on the channel. It will be coming back, but of course it's blown up. So, okay, so what have we been up to? Now the first one was the oil cooler, and just to refresh here, the oil cooler was damaged. It shouldn't have been damaged the way it was, but a light tap damaged it. Now I basically went to clean that surface up to putty it, and that caused another hole I didn't realize. And after that, I realized I'm chasing my tail with it. It's a bit of a pain to get to underneath the headers, so replacing it was the only solution. Now pulling that off, I made a massive mistake, which a few of you eagle-eyed viewers may have picked up, but you've of course got the oil side of the cooler attached to the housing, and then the housing attached to the block, and that separates coolant and oil. Because I undid every bolt at once, I unfortunately mixed it together and made a massive milkshake of my engine. So luckily it was only idling and running for a little bit, but I've flushed that out and fixed that, so don't panic about that one too much. And I was just amazed at the amount of gunk that was involved with this. So on the coolant side, there was just a lot of corrosion that nearly clogged it, and even on the oil side needed a good degrees and flush, because you could see it starting to catch up in there. So that was a very interesting one, but we have got that one out of the way. I'll stick my head in the engine bay here, please don't mind the rain. So we've got some new shiny bits in the front here. Now I've got a coolant leak up here which I need to address. Obviously the oil cooler is under the manifold there, nice and shiny. I've got the new headers on, which I'll touch on in a minute, and we've got the aircon compressor in here as well. So that's all put in and plumbed up. I do need to get a new lower pulley because that didn't fit, like always, but you can sort of see the modification and where that was going to foul on the cooler neck there as well. But all that is done. So headers are on. It was a massive pain in the ass, to be honest. The old tale of bolt it up, leave it loose, then tighten it up, I should have listened to, because I put the cat back on first of all, probably wasn't in the right position, and that definitely made life a bit harder for me. But I've gone through and getting all that done. I did the rock light, so I went under and just replaced a few of the lights under there that were full of water, a bit old and nasty. All the stickers have been pulled off the truck as well. So as you can see, it's looking pretty damn tidy, to be honest. I've shown the setup in the back, so now I've got the drawer and all that sort of stuff set up there. I've just got some new straps to hold that down and packed it with tools and spares. I've got the sway bar and the links done under the back, and the thing drives like a new truck. It is astonishing. Extensions, new links. So overall, pretty happy with it. What is coming next, I'll get to shortly. Now there is going to be one lingering question in the comment, which is, why is there a trailer hitch pin under the front suspension? So I'll briefly explain this before you get onto it. The hitch mod, or the trailer pin mod, or the poor man's sleeving. Now I don't need to point out, if you couldn't tell, that this was a primary bush truck before I bought it here. Now, what I've done is put basically drop boxes and taken that pin out the front to sort of let it work more freely. Now, as a bush truck, this is sort of not frowned upon. A lot of people don't agree with it, but I've run the setup for probably 9 months and I think it's fantastic. Will I run it on the road? Absolutely not. There's a good chance I'll be replacing it with some arms, but I would like to do a comparison between the two to see how it goes, and just to see how stiffening up the back with a sway bar will help the front work a bit better. But I've probably got some photos in here basically with that pin in, with that pin out, and it's a massive difference. So in the next video, we're hopefully going to get it all wrapped up. So we're nearly ready to register it. It'll be going to Kurt's out to get the mud flaps done. It's got a very, very long exhaust on it at the moment that won't last 2 seconds off road, but I just want to make sure that we can mount the mud flaps and clear it and do everything before we start melting stuff. So we're getting that guy done. The bull bar as well. Classic old bar I've got on it has definitely seen better days. So the 105 bar will sit a bit wider to cover the flares. And it is winch compatible as well, which will help. All right, well, that's enough for me. I just want to say a massive thank you. The last couple of videos have gotten plenty of likes, views, subs, all that sort of stuff. I'm not trying to do this professionally by any means, but it definitely makes it feel like you're in the right direction, which is more than enough for me. On the next one, as I said, we'll be back in the Land Cruiser. I just want to point out too, I've made a bit more of an investment in the channel. So I've been doing all my editing on like a 9-10-year-old MacBook. And I've been using a GoPro 7, which has definitely got its better days behind it. So I went and bought a new laptop and a new GoPro. Now I've made the jump from MacBook to Windows, and I've frankly got no idea what I'm doing. So any input would be fantastic. Any preferred software, because I know there's a ton of them out there. So, but any input on that would be great. Look, thanks again, guys, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.